Welcome back. In this video, we are going to look at while loops. And if you remember in the last video, we talked about for loops, which you used when you wanted to repeat a set of tasks a certain number of times. Well, when you're programming, you're not always sure how many times something's going to need to be run. So in those cases, you're going to use what's called a while loop. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the structure of a while loop. So let's write a very short while loop. And remember when we wanted to count the numbers from 1 to 6, we used for x in range, well, that's going to give us 5 numbers, and we printed x. So when I ran that, it just printed the numbers 0 through 5. We can do the same thing with the while loop to kind of demonstrate the structure. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to start with the keyword while. The next part of the structure contains a condition. So in this case, while x is less than 5. So this loop is going to keep running while x is less than 5, and I have to print x. But the problem is I've never defined x, so I have to actually define my variable up here. So I'll say, okay, x is 0, and then while x is less than 5, I'm going to print it. And the last thing I'll do is I'm going to add 1 to x. One thing to remember with while loops is that the loop only runs as long as this condition is true. So this loop will only run as long as x is less than 5. So the first time it goes through, x is 0. Is 0 less than 5? It is. It's true. It means it'll go through this loop. Then x is 1. 1 is still less than 5. 2, 3, 4. Once it gets to 5, is 5 less than 5? No, it's not, so it stops. And that's why 4 is the greatest number, because once it gets to 5 is less than 5, that's false, so 5 never gets printed. One mistake that comes up often is people forget this line. And so I say x is 0, while x is less than 5, let's print it. Let's see what that does. And you can see it's just printing 0, 0, 0, 0, because I never added 1 to x, which means that x is always going to be 0, which means it's never going to be greater than or equal to 5. So this is what's called an infinite loop, and it's going to keep running and running forever. In PyCharm, I can go ahead and hit the stop button, and it'll stop that process. So you have to make sure that you find some way to increment that counter if you're using a while loop like that. And again, that's called an infinite loop. There are times, however, when you might want to deliberately use an infinite loop. And to demonstrate that, let's look at this program here. Notice that my condition is true, while true. Well, true is always going to be true, which means this while loop is always going to run forever and ever and ever and ever. Let's look at this a little bit in more detail. So you see I have a variable called play again equals the input, would you like to play again? So the user is going to be prompted to play again, and they're supposed to press Y or N for yes or no. If play again equals Y or play again equals N, I have this keyword that means break, which means break out of the loop, stop the loop executing, and go on to the next statement. And I'm going to put the statement, I am out of the loop. Notice if it's not Y or N, the loop keeps continuing. So it goes back here, and this play again gets inputted again. And it keeps going and going until I enter either a Y or an N. So let's see what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run that program. And break. And it says, would you like to play again? And I'll put T for true. Okay. T is not either Y or N, so it runs the while loop again. Well, let's try capital Y. Well, that's not lowercase y or n, so it runs again. I can try pizza. So this kind of loop is a great way to make sure you're getting the right input from a user. If you want them only to type in a y or an n, you keep prompting them until they put a y or an n. And once they finally do, if I put a lowercase y, it hits break, it breaks out of the loop, and prints the last statement. Okay, so that's a handy use of the while loop and the break statement, okay, and an infinite loop. Remember we said at the beginning of the video that while loops are good when you don't know exactly how many times it's going to run. So the last thing we're going to do is look at an example of a loop that does that. So in this short program, I've imported the random module, and I have two variables, tries and total, that are both equal to 0. So what this program is going to do, it's going to simulate rolling dice. And I want to see how many times it's going to take me to roll a 12 on a pair of dice. And again, I have no idea how many times. It could be the first time, it could be the 200th time. So I've created, as I said, my while loop is while the total is not equal to 12. So while it's anything but 12, it's going to create a random number for the first die, a random number for the second one. It's going to add 1 to the tries. Now notice I have a special notation, tries plus equals 1. That's the same thing as tries equals tries plus 1. It's just kind of a shorthand notation. So I can say tries plus equals 1. So it adds 1 to the tries, and then adds the two dice together to get the total. Remember, this while loop is going to run as long as the total is not 12. As soon as it is 12, it breaks and goes to the next statement after the loop. So if the total is 2, well, it's not equal to 12. 2 is not equal to 12. That's true, so it goes into the loop. If it's 7, 7 is not equal to 12, so that's true, and it goes back into the loop. If it's 12, 12 is not equal to 12, that's false, so that means it breaks and goes to the next line. So let's go ahead and run this program and see how long it takes us to get 12 on a set of 2 die. Run, indefinite. Well, this time it took 5 tries to get a 12. Let's do it again. 4 tries, 15 tries, 61 tries. So you can see it rolls dice pretty quickly. That's why computers are very good simulators. For problems in this unit, you're going to run some simulations of some popular casino games. So that's it for loops. In the next unit, we'll look at one of the most useful structures in Python, something called lists. Until next time.